Working in the high-end furniture game, you meet all sorts. But Jake? He was something else. Every Thursday, like clockwork, he'd stroll into the showroom with a coffee in hand and a lopsided grin that said he owned the place, even though he never bought squat. I remember the first time he walked in. I was arranging a display of Italian leather sofas, real pricey stuff. He sauntered over, his eyes scanning the price tags, but not in the way most folks do. "Hey there," he started, leaning too close to a lamp that cost more than most people's rent. "What's the story with this one? Looks comfy enough to sleep on forever." I smirked, stepping in before he could test that theory. "It's handcrafted. Top of the line. But yeah, definitely not for napping." Jake chuckled, running a hand through his messy hair. "Guess I'll have to keep my shoes off then." We chatted, mostly him asking about the furniture, me trying to gauge if he was serious about buying anything. Turns out, he wasn't. That first day, he left with a wave and a "see you around." One slow afternoon, he dropped by with that same casual swagger. The store was dead, which meant I couldn't avoid a longer convo. "So, Elsie, right? You ever get tired of talking about couches and tables all day?" I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "It pays the bills. Besides, it's not so bad." "What's your deal anyway? You come in here all the time but never buy anything. Are you in the biz or just like messing with me?" Jake's laugh was a full-bodied sound that filled the room. "Nah, I'm not messing with you. Just like the vibe here, I guess. Plus, you're kind of fun to talk to." That day, he stayed longer than usual. We talked about everything, music, movies, you name it. He had an opinion on everything and a story to match. When he finally left, he turned at the door. "Hey, Elsie? You want to grab coffee sometime? Outside of these expensive walls?" I hesitated. This was new territory. "Sure, why not? But if you're planning to run a tab there too, I'm bringing a calculator." "Deal," he said with a laugh, and then he was gone. Coffee with Jake became our thing. Every time we met, he'd pick a spot as eclectic as the furniture he never bought. Each cup of coffee felt like a continuation of a conversation that never really ended. It flowed from furniture to life plans, from jokes to personal dreams. A year flew by since Jake and I started dating. He had this knack for making ordinary days feel like little adventures. It wasn't just coffee dates anymore. We had road trips, late-night movie marathons, and lazy Sundays spent wandering through flea markets. He seemed genuine, you know? Like a real stand-up guy. Then, out of the blue, during a picnic in the city park, nothing fancy, just us and some takeaway sandwiches, Jake got down on one knee. I almost choked on my soda. "Elsie, will you marry me?" he asked, holding up a ring that caught the sunlight just right. I laughed, half because I was nervous, and half because it felt so right. "Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious. I want all my tomorrows to start with you." His eyes were all hopeful, like a kid waiting to see if he'd won the top prize at a carnival game. I didn't need to think about it. Yes, Jake. Of course, yes. The next thing was meeting his folks. Jake had mentioned them, but we hadn't spent time together, and from what he said, they were a bit uptight. He decided it was time to introduce me properly, so he planned a dinner at their place. When we arrived, their house was, let's just say, eclectic. Every corner crammed with some fancy piece from a different era or style. It was like walking into a museum where all the exhibits got mixed up. Jake's mom, Lydia, was as cold as the November air when she opened the door. "You must be Elsie," she said, eyeing me like I was a piece of furniture she couldn't quite place. "Yes, nice to meet you," I managed, trying not to let her scrutiny get to me. We sat down to dinner, and the vibe was stiff. Jake tried to lighten the mood, but his dad, Harold, only thought a bit after Jake mentioned my job at the luxury salon. "So, you work with expensive furniture? Designer pieces?" Harold asked, his tone shifting from indifferent to slightly intrigued. "That's right," I said. "I help people choose pieces that work for their homes." Lydia perked up too. And you have savings? That's good. Very good. The conversation slowly turned to their interest in my financial stability rather than getting to know me. It was awkward, but I played along. After dinner, Lydia cornered me in their living room turned bizarre showroom. Elsie, dear, could you suggest something for this room? It feels a bit cluttered, she said, waving a dismissive hand around. I looked around, biting my tongue to avoid saying it looked like a yard sale gone mad. Instead, I put on my professional smile. Well, you might consider streamlining the styles. Maybe pick a theme or a period you like and build around that. There are some great, affordable alternatives to these high-end pieces that can give you a cohesive look without breaking the bank. Lydia's nose wrinkled. I don't want alternatives. I want the real deal, the stuff you sell in your store. I just thought, with your discount or whatever, you could help us out. The way she said it, like I owed them something, irked me. But Jake was watching us, a hopeful look in his eyes, like he wanted this to go well. I'll see what I can do, I said finally, even though I knew I'd be careful about any help I offered. Wedding talks with Jake and his parents were like walking into a hurricane and trying to stop the wind. His folks had their hearts set on a blowout bash. But here's the kicker. Lydia, with her taste for the finer things, dropped this gem during dinner one night. Women always dream of big weddings, so they should foot the bill, right? Her smirk told me she wasn't just throwing ideas around. She meant it. I nearly choked on my water. Well, Lydia, this woman dreams of a simple wedding. We're not breaking the bank or my sanity over one day. Jake, caught in the crossfire, gave me that look, the please go easy on my mom look. But nah, not this time. Elsie's right, he finally said, though his voice had the weight of a man walking to the gallows. We'll keep it simple. The wedding day came, and true to my word, it was simple, beautiful, but understated. Jake's parents plastered on their best sour grapes faces throughout the ceremony. I caught Lydia muttering to a relative, "You'd think a girl who sells fancy furniture could put on a better show." I let it slide. The day was about us, not them. I was floating, my heart full, as I said I do, to a modest gathering of our closest friends and family in the little garden behind our favorite cafe. Post-wedding life kicked off with Jake suggesting we rent a large apartment. You can deck it out just how you like, he said, knowing full well his bank account was running on fumes. I'll pitch in when things pick up for me. So, I signed a lease for a chic place that cost a pretty penny, $2,500 a month. My savings took the hit for the furniture and appliances. I went all out, styling it into a space that could have graced the pages of a design mag. When his parents visited, Lydia's eyes nearly popped out. This place, it's like something out of a movie, she gasped, touching the suede of the couch like it might vanish. I want this. All of this. Jake beamed like he'd built the place himself. Elsie has an eye for style, he boasted to his friends over drinks one evening, the apartment serving as the perfect backdrop for his tall tales of taste. But the bills? All mine. Rent checks, furniture receipts, you name it. My bank account knew the truth, even if Jake was playing the part of the man of the house. One particularly sharp memory was when Lydia pulled me aside during one of their visits, her voice a mix of honey and vinegar. Elsie, darling, maybe you could help us do the same with our place? Since you're so good with money and all. The way she said it, like I was some kind of cash wizard, it almost made me laugh. Almost. Lydia, decorating's one thing, but managing money's another. You start with a budget, something realistic. Her face fell. Clearly, budget was a dirty word in her book. But I wasn't about to school my mother-in-law on finances on top of everything else. The grind at the luxury furniture salon paid off. After months of hustling, the bosses noticed, and bam, promotion landed in my lap. They shuffled me over to the wholesale department, a whole new game with bigger clients and bulk deals. The team there was tight-knit, but they welcomed me with open arms. One person, in particular, made the transition smoother, my new boss, Sarah. She was around my age, sharp as a tack, and had an eye for design that even I admired. We clicked right off the bat, swapping stories about nightmare clients and dream projects over coffee breaks. One evening, back at our plush apartment that I'd decked out from my own pocket, I mentioned Sarah to Jake over dinner. "She's got this killer instinct for deals, you know? Closed two just this week that everyone thought were dead in the water," I said, passing him the salt. Jake, munching on his spaghetti, looked intrigued. "Sounds like a powerhouse. We should have her over for dinner, show off some of your handiwork here. Might be good for your career, huh?" So, we invited Sarah over the following weekend. I spent the day tidying up, while Jake decided he was Gordon Ramsay. The menu was his doing: roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and green beans, fancy but not too over the top. Sarah arrived on time, her eyes widening as she stepped into the living room. "Wow, Elsie, this place is incredible. You did all this?" "All her," Jake chimed in, leading her on a tour. "Wait till you see the dining setup." Dinner was lively, thanks to Jake. He was on a roll, cracking jokes, refilling glasses, laughing a little too loud. At some point, he was more of a host than I was in my own home. I caught him a few times, being extra attentive to Sarah, laughing a touch too heartily at her jokes, which were funny but not that funny. It bugged me enough that I pulled him aside while Sarah was in the restroom. "Hey, what's with the show?" I whispered, nodding toward the dining room. Jake kept his voice low, a serious look crossing his face for just a second. "I am trying to impress her. For you. Maybe she'll speed up another promotion or something." I frowned. "I don't need you to charm my boss for a promotion, Jake. I can handle my career." When Sarah came back, we rounded off the evening with dessert, chocolate cake, Sarah's favorite, as I'd mentioned to Jake. He listened, at least when it suited his plans. After Sarah left, praising the meal and the company, Jake slumped on the couch, grinning like he'd won a prize. "See? Told you it'd go great." I sat beside him, not quite sharing the sentiment. "It was nice, but don't do that again. I don't need a show, just be normal next time." Jake just waved a hand, dismissing my concerns as he turned on the TV. "You worry too much. It was fine." But it wasn't fine, not really. His act felt off, like he was playing a part. Since the promotion, my paycheck had grown nicely, which, naturally, led Jake to find new ways to spend it. First up, his wardrobe. "Babe, I can't keep wearing these old suits. If you want me to be promoted too, I gotta look the part," he'd argued one evening, thumbing through a catalog of designer suits that cost more than our rent. "Fine, we'll update your closet. But keep it sensible, okay?" I conceded, figuring if it boosted his confidence, it might help him in his own career. The new Jake was a dapper one, and he was all too eager to show off his revamped style. Not long after the wardrobe overhaul, he had another idea. How about dinner out with Sarah again? Could be fun, right? It sounded harmless enough, so I agreed. The night was a success, full of laughter and pricey wine. At the end of the evening, when the check came, Jake made a show of grabbing it. "Let me get that for you," he told Sarah with a flourish. She smiled, a bit awkwardly. "Oh, you don't have to, but thank you, Jake." Then, with his hand on the leather folder, he leaned in close to me. "Babe, can you cover this? Just play along." Puzzled and slightly annoyed, I nodded, slipping my card to the waiter while Sarah was distracted. Jake was beaming like he'd just closed a major deal, and I couldn't help but feel like I was being played in my own life. This pattern didn't stop. Dinners turned into weekend getaways, which Jake insisted on initiating, and I unwittingly financed. He'd tell Sarah, "Don't worry about the cost, we've got it," while winking at me across the room. It was during one such trip, a luxurious beach resort stay, that I hit my breaking point. As I signed yet another exorbitant bill, Jake clapped me on the back. "Isn't this great? Sarah's having a wonderful time. Good for your career, this." That night, in our hotel room, I confronted him. "Jake, I can't keep this up. These trips, these dinners. It's too much. We're supposed to be a team, but I feel like your bank more than your wife. Jake's face darkened, his voice cold and sharp. I'm doing this for you, for us. If you can't see that, maybe you should just enjoy it alone. I'm busting my ass here trying to help your career. After that, things changed. Jake started staying late at work, or at least that's what he said. Sudden meetings, unexpected calls, it became his new normal. I was sad, sure, but also furious. I wasn't going to be his meal ticket anymore. The joy of our dinners and trips had soured, turning into a reminder of how much I was losing, not just money, but a partner I thought I knew. The call from Sarah to come to her office immediately sent a cold wave of anxiety through me. What could it be? My mind raced with every possible mistake I might have made, every deadline, every email. I knocked on her office door, my heart hammering in my chest, and stepped inside. Sarah was sitting behind her desk, her expression serious, the usual warmth absent. My gaze fell on an alarming number of bouquets and unopened gift boxes piled in one corner. Elsie, please, have a seat, she gestured to the chair across from her. We need to talk about something important. Her tone was so grave it made my stomach turn. I sat down, clutching my hands in my lap, preparing for the worst. Sarah sighed, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of concern and discomfort. It's about Jake, she started, and my heart sank. His behavior has been, well, inappropriate. I blinked, confused. Inappropriate how? She gestured to the gifts. He's been sending these. Flowers, jewelry, even designer clothes. It's excessive and, frankly, uncomfortable for me. He's crossing professional and personal boundaries, Elsie. I felt a hot flush of embarrassment. I had no idea, I stammered, feeling naive and foolish. Sarah leaned forward, her voice softening. I value our friendship, and I respect you immensely, Elsie. That's why I need to be honest. He's making advances. I've told him repeatedly that I'm not interested, that I see him only as your husband, but he isn't listening. I swallowed hard, a lump forming in my throat. Thank you for telling me, Sarah. I'll handle it. My voice was a whisper, barely holding back tears. I got home, still reeling, only to find Jake in the living room, a suitcase by his side. His demeanor was light, almost giddy, which only fueled my growing anger. There you are. I've got news. He beamed at me impudently, as if oblivious to the storm inside me. I've decided it's time for a fresh start. Quit my job today, and I think it's best if my parents move in here. You should find another place. His words hit me like a physical blow. What are you talking about, Jake? Your parents? Why would I leave? He shrugged, annoyingly calm. Come on, Elsie. This place is too good for just us. And let's be honest, it fits their style more. Plus, you can afford another spot, no big deal, right? I stared at him, disbelief and anger intertwining. No big deal? You cheat, you lie, you spend my money, and now you kick me out? Whoa, cheat? What are you on about? His feigned ignorance was infuriating. Don't play dumb, Jake. Sarah told me everything, the gifts, the advances. How could you? My voice cracked, tears threatening to spill. Jake's face hardened. So what? She's richer and more promising than you, so I just want to get a better life. Just pack up and go, Elsie. His words were a dagger, cutting through any remaining ties of affection I had for him. That night, I lay in the spare bedroom, the reality of my crumbling marriage suffocating me. Jake's betrayal was clear, his intentions laid bare. By morning, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I had found a new apartment online, a smaller, quieter place that felt like a fresh start. I signed the lease electronically and called the movers, all before Jake had even stirred from his sleep. As the movers started arriving, I was methodically showing them around, pointing out what to take. I'd gathered all the receipts and proofs of purchase for the furniture, my furniture, that I'd paid for with my hard-earned money. I was ready, determined. Jake stumbled out of the bedroom, bleary-eyed and confused as he saw the movers loading up boxes. What's going on, Elsie? Why are you taking the furniture? I held up the folder stuffed with receipts. Because it's mine. I bought it, I paid for it, and it's coming with me. Any questions? He opened his mouth, then closed it, the reality hitting him as his eyes swept over the evidence in my hands. Just then, his parents burst through the door. His mother, Lydia, took one look at the scene, movers carrying out chairs and tables, and she lost it. Stop. Stop right now. Put my furniture back. The movers paused, looking unsure. I nodded firmly at them. Keep going, guys. It's all documented. Lydia was frantic, her voice rising in panic as she turned to Jake. How are we supposed to live here without any furniture? What are we going to do? I couldn't help but laugh. Oh, don't worry, Lydia. I'm sure Jake's new girlfriend will furnish your lives splendidly, I said, the sarcasm dripping from every word. His mother looked at him hopefully, her eyes darting back and forth between the emptying apartment and her son. And your little boss is going to buy us all this? Is she going to take care of us now? I shook my head, almost in disbelief at their audacity. Actually, I spoke to her yesterday. She wants nothing to do with you or Jake. She's sending back every ridiculous gift he bought. The look on Jake's face was priceless, a mix of shock, embarrassment, and a realization that his schemes were crumbling around him. Lydia's wrath turned to her son as she poked him hard in the chest. You fool. We could have had a good life here with Elsie supporting us, and you ruined it. Jake's desperation was palpable as he turned to me, his voice shaky. Elsie, please, don't do this. We can fix it. We can start over. I handed him an envelope, the divorce papers I had prepared. This is the only thing left to start over. My lawyer will call you. As I walked out of the apartment, I didn't look back. I was leaving behind more than just a bad marriage and a duplicitous husband. I was leaving behind the old Elsie who tolerated far too much. Settling into my new apartment was like breathing fresh air after being submerged underwater for too long. The place wasn't as large as the last, but every square inch of it was mine, truly mine. I threw myself into decorating, picking pieces that weren't just stylish but spoke to my newfound independence. I went for bold colors this time, vibrant blues and emerald greens, each room a testament to starting over. Meanwhile, Jake and his parents weren't faring so well. Last I heard, they couldn't keep up with the $2,500 rent without my paycheck and had to downsize dramatically. They ended up in a cramped, run-down place on the other side of town. Jake refused to settle for a regular job. He bounced around, looking for another golden ticket, while his mom, Lydia, had no choice but to get a retail job. Their palace built on expectations had crumbled, and from what snippets I caught through mutual friends, so had their tolerance for each other. Then, one afternoon as I was setting up a new art piece in the living room, my phone rang. The sweet, sugary tone of Lydia's voice oozed through the speaker when I answered. Elsie, darling, it's Lydia. How have you been? We've all missed you so much over here. I almost dropped the phone, half laughing, half in disbelief. Missed me, Lydia, or my paycheck? Let me guess, you want me to come back? To what? Watch Jake chase dreams while I foot the bill. No thanks, Lydia. You don't understand, Elsie, we're family. She tried again, her voice now a mix of desperation and saccharine. Family? I scoffed. Family doesn't use each other, Lydia. You should try supporting yourselves for a change. Before she could respond, I hung up and blocked the number. That part of my life was closed, sealed, and good riddance to it. In contrast to the chaos that was my past life, my career was flourishing. Sarah and I had grown closer, her respect for me solidifying after I handled the personal turmoil with as much grace as I could muster. She hinted last week that another promotion was on the horizon, something that would put me even more in control of my professional path. It was like the universe rewarding me for all the hardships. One evening, sitting in my newly decorated living room, I reflected on everything that had happened. The apartment looked incredible, a true reflection of my style and spirit. I had new friends coming over that night, colleagues who appreciated me for my skills and company, not for what my bank account could do for them. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. I opened the door to smiling faces, genuine and happy to see me. As we gathered around the sleek, modern dining table I'd picked out myself, laughter filled the space, bouncing off walls that echoed a new chapter of my life.